When the light flickers, the temperature rises, and notifications ping across a cluttered desk, your ability to think deeply begins to fracture. You have likely spent hours organizing your calendar, muting your phone, and testing different digital task managers to protect your focus. Yet, in the pursuit of the perfect routine, there is a massive blind spot sitting right in front of you, the physical room you occupy. Even with perfect digital discipline, an unoptimized physical environment actively competes for the brain's limited processing power. Complex knowledge work, like strategizing, writing, or coding, requires high levels of sustained attention and executive control. Routine work, like answering repetitive emails, is less affected by environmental distractions. But when the task requires deep concentration, the physical environment becomes a critical factor in performance. This introduces the concept of indoor environmental quality, or IEQ. This is the collection of physical factors, the air, the light, and the sound that surround you while you work. Your workspace functions as a continuous stream of sensory data that the brain must constantly process and filter, draining cognitive bandwidth. Scientific evidence does not support popular claims that fluorescent lights cause brain damage or that a messy desk creates chronic cortisol spikes. Instead, we see an invisible cognitive tax. Small environmental frictions compound over hours, making thinking artificially difficult. These environmental stressors contribute to cumulative executive exhaustion rather than acute neurological damage. Consider the air in your office. Rising carbon dioxide levels serve as a primary indicator of poor ventilation and stale air. Multi-country studies have shown that exposure to higher levels of indoor particulate matter and CO2 correlates with slower cognitive response times and reduced accuracy. Thermal discomfort also takes a toll. When you are too hot or too cold, the brain allocates attention to physical temperature regulation rather than the task at hand. Opening a window or adjusting a thermostat removes an autonomic bottleneck, allowing you to reclaim that diverted attention. While steady background hums are manageable, unpredictable or meaningful sounds capture involuntary attention. Intermittent speech is highly destructive to language-based cognitive tasks like reading or writing, as the brain struggles to ignore the structure of the conversation. Imperceptible fluorescent light flicker and monitor glare create constant, low-level visual strain, pushing the brain toward an overloaded state. Utilizing noise-canceling headphones and indirect lighting restores the brain's sensory bandwidth by subtracting these interruptions. Prolonged static sitting accelerates mental fatigue through physical discomfort, though no single perfect posture exists. Physical dust clutter and digital notifications act as competing demands on your spatial attention, constantly pulling focus away from your work. Clearing a desk and shifting posture eliminates the final layer of unnecessary friction from the environment. Scientific evidence does not point to one universal, perfect workspace setup for every human being. Ultimately, an optimized work environment is simply one with the absolute least amount of sensory and physical friction. When the environmental tax is fully subtracted, the brain is free to direct its entire spotlight of attention onto deep work. To see this in action, isolate and alter just one environmental variable at a time during a 7-day experiment. Test these 5 variables: noise, temperature, lighting, air ventilation, and digital interruptions. You might find that you don't lack the discipline to focus. You may have just been fighting invisible friction. What is the single biggest point of friction in your current workspace? And what would happen to your output if you subtracted it today?